your ex misses you later. And I'm going to tell you why that is and what you can expect and what you can do about that principle of breakups, that your ex usually is going to miss you later than you miss them. Number one is something I call the delayed loss window. And basically it's where after breaking up with you, your ex sort of psychologically creates an emotional buffer for themselves. And it's where they've gotten something difficult over with. They didn't want to just break up with you. They didn't want to hurt you. It's awkward. And they got it over with. And so there's sort of this euphoria, this relief, just like if you can imagine when you get something very difficult over with. Maybe you have to have a difficult conversation with someone. And when that's over, it feels really good. So they got that over with, and then they anticipate that they are going to like life better without you to some degree. And that can be for a large list of reasons. After coaching as long as I have, I've definitely heard a lot of reasons for breakups. And a lot of times I have to ask questions and dig to really figure out the real reason for the breakup. But whatever it was, they feel like that they are getting something better, because you don't leave what you have unless you believe what you're going to is better. And that may be another person. Usually it's at least the idea of another person, but sometimes it can just be relief and being single if they didn't want the relationship anymore or if it was a bad one. The way that you can get them out of this stage, and I call it the relief stage, and I have a video called Stages Your Ex Goes Through During No Contact that I'll link to in the description below. It's a great video to watch, but basically the way that you can get them out of the relief stage the fastest is going to be no contact, 100%. You are not reaching out to them. You're not watching their stories. You are not participating in their life if you can help it. And this is what gets them out of that stage, because if you don't give them this stage, and as I say a lot, give them the breakup, which means you're not going to try to talk them out of it. You're not going to try to change their mind. You're not going to keep reaching out to them, seeing if their feelings have changed. You may do that the first few days. That's natural. That's normal to respond that way, but stop. The sooner you stop, the sooner they can get out of this relief stage, because if you're doing those things, they are seeking relief. They're seeking it. They don't have it. And one of the principles in life is that if there's something we want and we're just not getting it, we will keep trying harder and harder, and we will build it up to give it greater value. And so they are giving the breakup greater and greater value because you're not giving it to them and they think they want it. The only way they can see they don't want it is for you to give it to them and let them go through that relief stage where they think, this is going to be great. This is what I want. I am now in paradise and I can ride off into the sunset. It's almost never that good. It's almost never that way. Let them have it. And that's going to cause other things too. It's not just the disappointment that maybe it's not as good without you as they thought it would be. There are lots of other factors too that I'm going to get into as I go through this video. Number two, they go from freedom to loneliness. And that's where after the breakup, yes, they go into relief. They think this is going to be great. But what happens is, even if they have somebody else lined up or a rebound relationship or something like that, the history that you two have together creates what's called emotional intimacy. And it's where you are connected emotionally because you have been sharing each other's lives. You've been revealing your life to them. This is what happened today. This is what happened this week. This is how I feel about it. This is what happened to me in my past. This is what I think about it. This is what I feel about it. And they have done the same to you. So you can see inside of them. They can see inside of you. You know each other. That is emotional intimacy. And when you have it for a long period of time, especially when we're talking about something 6 months or beyond, it's not just something that they can give up and not feel by choice. It will come back. There will be this longing where they think they're getting this freedom from you that they want. But even if they are surrounded by company, by people, by a rebound, they will feel a certain kind of loneliness that only comes when you have had emotional intimacy with someone and that person is no longer there. They don't get to just not feel it. They don't get to just back out of it. And most people underestimate how much this impacts them. And that's one of the big reasons no contact works, is because when they get out of that relief stage, they start to feel a loneliness that comes from being away from you, from missing you. Not necessarily being lonely as far as people around them and in their life, but that emotional intimacy, that history that they had with you was ripped away, even if it was by their own hands. And a lot of times their support system gets fatigued because they will probably have some doubts, especially if this was a long-term relationship and there was talk of the future, there was maybe talk of marriage. They will talk to people about that and they'll say, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And the other person usually will say, yes, you are, mostly because they don't want to rattle things or cause more difficulty or drama, and they just want them to stick with the course. Or maybe it can be like in a lot of cases, the saying is single girls make girls single, and sometimes single guys can make guys single. They want a single buddy to go out with them, but then of course they find someone and it's like, oh, well, enjoy single life. I have someone now. And so that's not a good deal, but they will get fatigued of hearing about you, of hearing about your ex doubt. Did I make the right decision? I just keep thinking I would feel better. I wonder what he's doing. I wonder what she's doing. And those people get tired of hearing about it and they will start pulling back for them as well. And so now, even if it's some, and it's not totally where the people have just pulled away from them and won't talk to them at all, but it's a lot less, it still exacerbates their loneliness, specifically for emotional intimacy with you, because that's what they've lost. And again, I'm talking about sort of a perfect case, a best case scenario here, but still some of it will have impact on your ex, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not ideal. Before I get to number 3, get information on my reunion blueprint. It's only $7 and it's a really strong guide to help you get your ex back, to learn about what they're thinking, what you can do, what you can expect, and things like that. It's called the Reunion Blueprint. It's just $7. Anybody can afford it. You can get it at reunionblueprint.com. That's reunionblueprint.com. I'll link to it in the description below. But there's no financial excuse not to get this, and it's very helpful. It's the Reunion Blueprint. Thank you for your support and for listening to my commercial. Number 3, another reason that your ex misses you later is what I call the emotional echo effect. And basically what it is that they don't necessarily think about you all day long and all night long. Usually they go through that relief stage and then they will have periods of time. Usually it's 2 or 3 days where it's really difficult, and then it gets a little easier for 2 or 3 days. And usually these things are triggered by songs, maybe that meant a lot to the two of you, maybe by your cologne or your perfume, and they smell it somewhere. They're walking through a store and someone else has it on. Scent is the strongest sense tied to memory. And that's a pretty amazing fact if you ever look into it, but that can be helpful. Other things that trigger it are songs that were special to the two of you, gifts that you got them, pictures of you maybe on their phone. And all of this can be triggered more so by your silence, because that's what enables them and comforts them that they don't have to worry about it, that if they wanted you back, they could get you back. And if you want them to feel that way, then contact them and they will think, okay, it was not worth me worrying about. This person is clearly still interested in me. So yes, I can continue on with the breakup. And if it gets too difficult, I can just get them back. You don't want your ex feeling that. You want them to have a sense of urgency. And what creates a sense of urgency is missed opportunity, either to get something good or to prevent yourself from having to experience something bad. And your silence tells them you're not making an effort. And they will assume things about your silence. I have a video called The Power of Silence, and I talk about that. Basically, they assume you're loving life, you're going out, you're being social, because that's what you assume when you don't hear from them. You think, what are they doing? Who are they doing it with? They will think that about you as well if you are in no contact, if you're silent. That's why it's so important. That's why I tell people so often, you have got to do this if you want the best chance of getting your ex back. This brings me to number 4. And this usually happens if you are being silent, if you're in no contact, and it's unexpected jealousy. And you trying to create jealousy, maybe posting pictures on social media with another person, that usually blows up in your face. At least the potential is there for that to happen, because they will possibly think you're doing this just to get at them, which actually enables them and gives them assurance. It's like, wow, if he or she is trying to convince me or trying to make me jealous, then they really want me back. So I'm fine. I don't have to worry about this. I can just keep moving forward with the breakup, because I know if I want them back, they're trying so hard to get me that it really wouldn't take much of an effort. And so I'm not that worried about it. And when you take away worry and concern, you make it easier on them. You don't want to do that if you want them back. And so your silence causes them to assume You're moving on, and there's potentially someone else. And the way that they can prove this to themselves is they think back when they first met you, when you two first started dating, and they think about how attracted they were to you then. And they must have been, or you two wouldn't have formed a committed, serious relationship. They were into you. And they will think someone else could be attracted to him as strongly as I was, or to her as strongly as I was. And they could move on with their lives with this person, and I could possibly not get them back. You at least want them to have that concern because it makes them really evaluate the breakup. When they see you trying hard, contacting them constantly and things like that, it can be obnoxious. I hate to say that, but I'm being honest with you. It can come across as obnoxious, as exhausting, as frustrating, as awkward. And it can cause anxiety where they will just want to be away from you because they don't want to hear about it. And so that will make the breakup even more attractive, as I've already talked about. But when you don't do those kind of things, then there's no pressure. They don't feel like they're trying to get the breakup. There's no seeking and trying and striving and pushing and struggling for it. They have it. And so it loses some of its value. But if they think that you are moving on with someone else, it makes them ask themselves, am I really sure? And then they start thinking about it and evaluating the good times and thinking about those kind of things. That's where they can become preoccupied with you. They can become even obsessed to some degree. But if you are the one contacting them, pressuring them, asking them how they're feeling, trying to get them back, touching base with them and those kind of things, then they don't feel any reason that they need to rethink the decision, because it feels like even if they're wrong, you're right there and it would be simple to get back together with you. So they will be more likely to explore this new freedom because there are no consequences. But if you want them to feel jealousy, the kind that actually can be helpful, you want to be silent, not contact them, and let them wonder. The mystery, the not knowing, will actually cause them to assume that you are dating, that you are moving on with someone else, or at least that that's a possibility. And that kind of jealousy where it doesn't appear you're trying to make them feel it, that's the most powerful kind, because they believe it's 100% legitimate, that they have every right to feel this way, and this could be a big problem because they haven't thought about having to see you with somebody else or think that someone else got you when they were having these doubts. And so it can really magnify those doubts because they realize the price they pay could be a lot more than they originally thought. Number 5, their brain tends to rewrite the history of the breakup. And basically what they will usually tell themselves when they come out of the relief stage into the stage of curiosity, they will say, it's not the most comfortable thing. Maybe it's a little bit difficult. Maybe I'm a little sad about it, but it was for the best. And that's kind of a comforting thought people will have when they're going through breakups that they initiated. They'll say, it was for the best. But most people tend to have suspicions about their own logic and reason. And they make sure they're right. And they will go through the details. And especially when they're not hearing from you and they realize you're not going to bail them out of this, that's when they will do that even more so. So much more pressure is put by themselves on their reasoning for the breakup, and they start wondering if the relationship and you as a partner was really as bad as they thought. And when time passes where you're not doing anything, where you are silent, where they're not hearing anything from you, they tend to remember the good times, mostly because of your absence. If you were just constantly talking to them and pressuring them, they would remember the bad times because they associate that basically with you trying to get them to do something they don't want to do, which is stay in the relationship. And they will think of reasons why they shouldn't. But if you are not trying to get them back, if you're not basically saying you should get back together with me, which is what you're saying when you're contacting them, you're asking them how they feel and that kind of thing, when there's not that pressure on them, then they are free to think about the good times, the reasons that maybe this was not the right decision, because they're not experiencing any kind of pressure to where they have to defend the idea of the breakup in the first place. So they're comfortable thinking about the good times. It could actually be a little bit comforting, but it's a Trojan horse. It comes in as comfort, but it remains as pain. And they start to lose clarity about why they broke up with you in the first place. It doesn't make as much emotional sense because your value has increased because you've been silent. You haven't been pursuing them. And so whereas your attraction was on a lower level when they broke up with you just because of the process. When someone else breaks up with you, the person who's doing the dumping basically gets a little boost in attraction and you get a drop because of the process itself. That's just how it works. And that basically reverses itself when they're not hearing from you because you're not acting like someone who's less attractive. You're acting like someone who can move on, who's not enamored with them, and who can be with someone else, who can get someone else, who can attract someone else. And when they lose that clarity about why they broke up with you, and they have a realistic concern that you are more attractive than they thought, and that will be clear to someone else, they panic. I've seen it many times, and so many of my clients have seen it as well. And you can book a coaching session with me at myexbackcoach.com. You'll see my name, and you can click on that. It'll show you where you can get a coaching session with me. You can do that at myexbackcoach.com. Remember my reunion blueprint. It's only $7. There's no excuse not to get it. And to really get a handle on this, to get an advantage, to get a head start, and to hit the ground running as far as getting your ex back, it's extremely informative. And I made it over the top because I wanted to put a really cheap price tag on it, $7, and impress people with how helpful it can be. It's the Reunion Blueprint. You can get it at reunionblueprint.com. If you like this video, please like it. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And certainly leave a comment if you want to ask a question or just tell the community about your experience. This has been Coach Lee, and as always, thank you for watching.